My workouts, my training, my work days, I can't make those all consistently great. Like you
Never bought the house, but that's what actually got me into the mortgage business.
You're reminding me of what I established as my own family motto, which is you tell me I can't, and I'm going to show you how I did it.
Hey everyone, this is Brian Coester, Real Estate Connection, giving you another podcast of Wrecking It with Fritz. And today we have special guest Jeff Van Note, mortgage industry expert, technologist, entrepreneur, NFL candidate, overall great guy. Jeff, welcome. How are you, sir?
Brian, Fritz, thanks for having me. I'm doing great. Thank you so much.
So yeah, we were talking, a little bit. Jeff, I'm a big follower of your Facebook and social media posts, and I've been actually meaning to reach out to you previously just to touch base. So this is actually working out. But maybe give just everyone, Jeff Van Note, right? Give everyone just a little sneak peek into the mind.
Oh man, that's kind of deep. I don't know if we have enough time, and I don't know if people are going to cry, laugh, or turn us off after they hear it. But so the thing that just came to me, I'm a big believer. I've learned to be a big believer in divine timing, right? Whatever that means to each individual, right? I think from an early age, myself, especially yourself, knowing now your background in sports and football and whatnot, I think being an athlete and being competitive and constantly looking for personal growth, we're all expecting things to happen on our timeline in a condensed time frame, right? Hey, I really want to put on 20 pounds of muscle and I want to get faster. Things just don't happen overnight on that, right? So who is Jeff Van Note right now on January 19, 2023? A completely different person than I was a year ago, especially 5 years ago, and especially 16 years ago when I entered the mortgage business. I like to think that I'm somebody that always does the right thing, right? I like to consider myself to be somebody that is able to remove myself from a situation, even if I'm in the situation, and look at a situation as a whole to say, here's the best interest and outcome with everyone's best interest in mind, right? I think a lot of people have a hard time doing that. The third thing is I like to think that I bring a lot of passion and intensity in everything that I do. I think early on in my career, the problem was I tried bringing passion and intensity to every single opportunity, the same way I would go up and try and catch every single pass that was thrown to me. I didn't realize that in life and in business, in football, if somebody's overthrowing you by 20 yards and you're not going to catch that, right? Or if they underthrow you. But in life and in business, you're presented with an opportunity, and I think the competitive nature says, I want to catch this opportunity and execute this opportunity and score that touchdown. So I think I've learned a lot in my 15, now 16 years in real life and business. And I hope my message and my experiences can inspire and motivate and help people either progress in their career, get started in their career, or even just learn a little bit about the mistakes that I've made and help them avoid costly mistakes that, most people probably would not be able to recover from in life.
It's beautiful what you said, right? Like, I think coming from an athlete perspective, everyone has this kind of like David Goggins, do or die, never quit, never, you never surrender type mentality. And then you get out into the marketplace and then you recognize that, not everyone's a Navy SEAL, right? Nor does everyone want to be a Navy SEAL. And, one of our mortgage kind of guys that I was talking to previously, he's like, man, I got this problem with my branch and my loan officers and my processors. They're just lazy and they don't want to do this and they don't want that. And I'm like, this guy's reading David Goggins, getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, was, in the Marines. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, dude, this girl's driving home at 5 o'clock, listening to the radio, thinking about her kids. Like, she doesn't have any desire of what you're talking about. And it's like, dial that down a little bit, brother, like, kind of thing. And then, and it's hard to do, right? Because that's not how you operate. That's not your, and it's kind of learning those slower skills. And it's like my brother owns a company too. And, we used to always talk about like where we'd get we're a vendor, so I had an appraisal company, and then his title company, and we're a real estate company now. But we get an RFP from Wells Fargo, right? Like we're going to be the service provider for Wells Fargo, and we'd spend all night trying to write it up and respond, and we're going to get this, and it's like we have no business doing business in Wells Fargo, right? Like our little tiny company,
Sure.
and you almost set yourself up for failure because you're kind of shooting for the stars. And I think it shows a lot of maturity in what you just said, in the sense of like, rather than saying, okay, we're going to go conquer the world, I'm going to win the day, right? Like I'm going to put my intelligence to, winning what's in front of me, the balls that I can catch, right? And having the maturity not to, jump for the one that's, 20 yards in front of you that you can't get. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and you make really good points. And again, like as we talk and get to know each other more, right? You'll see that like I just kind of get like these downloads or thoughts that come in. And one thing that like just vividly was shown to me was, early on in my career, again, so I started, let's backtrack. So I got cut from I knew my football career wasn't going to go where I wanted it to go. I fought my ass off to even just get myself onto the field. I never caught a pass in college, but I wound up starting on special teams on punt return as the block guy. And I was a field goal holder. I did whatever I did to get in the field. And I was told my new coaches came in that I would never get on the field and I would never play it down. So I kind of defied those odds, right? And that was strictly from like I wasn't their player standpoint. And if you played sports, which you did, coaches come in and they want to play their guys because they have to justify giving them the scholarships, right? And they're almost incentivized to run the players that were there prior to them out of the program, right? Because they need to prove their worth, right? So I was walking past the house in the Bronx. I played at Fordham University in the Bronx, and it was a house that was for sale. And at the time in 2007, you can get a mortgage, no credit, no income, no assets. And I'm like, hey, this sounds like a good opportunity here. I could rent it out, make some money. Never bought the house, but that's what actually got me into the mortgage business, right? Fast forward 4 months later, I got cut the day before my spring game. And I tell everyone this story. I've been humbled by life like most people have. I think sports humble us, right? But really life humbles us, especially the more business you do and the more liabilities you take on and exposure you get. Life has a way of humbling us, right? Yeah. I was able to get to my level in sports, not from skill or talent, but from having a chip on my shoulder, right? Like the average person that took hits that I took wouldn't get back up or wouldn't ever show up again. If somebody says to you, hey, you're never going to play here, most people are going to quit and be like, all right, I'm either going to transfer, go somewhere else. I'm like, no, I'm going to prove myself, right? So my coach cut me the day before the spring game. I had like 20 people, friends, family, you name it, girlfriends come into the spring game. So I drove home to my mom's house and I think I cried, like I'm embarrassed, like my identity was football for so long. Fast forward, I didn't sleep at all that night. I woke up at 5 a.m., drove an hour back to the Bronx, got ready, showed up, and the coach was like, what the hell are you doing here? You're cut. I said, I'm playing in this game today. Like, if you want to make a scene, we could do that, right? And I wound up leading the team in yards and touchdowns for the spring game, right? Yeah. Kind of crazy when you think about it. And then I walked up to him after the game. I'm like, hey, coach, hopefully my performance, makes you change your mind. And he's like, nope, done. Like, you're out. My decision stands still. Like, good luck with life, right? So that actually propelled me into the mortgage business to now prove myself, right? And the reason why I share that story is because, looking back 16 years later, it was a blessing in disguise, right? Definitely wouldn't have made it to the NFL. Definitely wouldn't have gotten a shot anywhere else. Where would I have been in life if that didn't fuel me to my next level, right? But early on in my life, all I knew was to use force, right? I was out working people. I was out positioning people, right? I was doing everything that was in my control to get ahead. But the problem was when I was developing my companies and organizations, I was operating more with the Yankee mentality of pay whatever, do whatever, just get the top players in, whether they're washed up or not. Whereas now I've evolved into like the Bill Belichick strategy of I'm going to get the no-name people, right, that want to be here, that want to work their ass off, and I'm going to put them in positions based on what I believe their capabilities are, rather than trying to make everybody be like me 24/7 and want to go out and make millions of dollars a year. So I think that's where I saw my biggest evolution of personal growth and business growth.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. A lot of maturity in that statement too. So let me ask you this. This is a football question because I have dreams about this.
Yeah.
Okay. Kickoff, right?
Yep.
So you're back there, they punt you the ball or they kick the ball to you.
I was a returner too, so I'm in. I'm checked in.
Standing there, you got 12 guys coming at you, 11 guys coming at you, 100 miles an hour, one goal, just plow right into you. What's going through your head? Because it is super hard to catch that ball, right? Like on a punt or a kickoff, it is way harder than like what I used to have. We had a punter, Dustin Colquitt, who
of course, played for the Saints.
Yeah, Saints, the Chiefs, right? One of the great punters. And so I used to try to catch his balls, right? Like, anyway, well,
footballs, punts.
punts.
Yeah.
I used to try to catch his punts. And I'm telling you what, it's damn near impossible, like, to catch those punts. So, let alone run. So, give me the play-by-play. You're going in, kicking off, punt. What are you thinking?
I think the first thing, and I think, well, let me tell you, let me unwind that. I think for myself personally, I never like getting ahead of what's next, right? I think that's where mistakes are. I think that's where mistakes are made, right? So myself personally, my first order of importance is I got to catch the ball, right?
Okay.
And I think you see receivers in the NFL, in particular, even in college, they try running before they catch the ball, right? And if they would have just caught the ball, they would have had a catch or a first down or a touchdown, whatever. But they get ahead of the process. They rush the process, right? So my first order of importance is, okay, if I'm going to plant my feet on the 5-yard line and this ball is over my head, I know I'm letting it go behind me into the end zone for a touchback. Or if it's in front of me, am I going to call a fair catch? I kind of set that up front. But I'm a big believer. I've turned into a big believer. I used to be called like, oh, you're like a bull in a china shop, or you're very reckless. And it wasn't reckless. It was, I wasn't afraid to go over the middle and get hit. And I wasn't afraid to catch the ball and run, knowing 11 guys were looking to take my head off. Right. And by the way, I shared a video with you guys. I think you guys would like it and share it. It's one of our endorsements for Re-Verify. My buddy who is an agent for Isaiah Rodgers on the Colts, we made a video for our technology company actually emulating a kickoff return and the real estate process. So if you guys do want to pull up and share it, feel free to do that.
That'll be cool. We, Brian, we can have that edited in. Actually, we kind of.
I can do it. I can pull it in right now. Hold on.
Yeah, pull it in right now because that's interesting. I've got some feedback here as well because Jeff, I really appreciate where you're coming from. Right, it's like you're reminding me of what I established as my own family motto, which is you tell me I can't, and I'm going to show you how I did it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And it makes me think of Joe Gibbs, right? Probably the greatest professional coach of all time. And I say professional coach because not only the best NFL coach of all time, but also the best NASCAR owner of all time. To have success, the type of success he's had across both sports. But his thing was always what you mentioned earlier, which was win this play. Trust this process.
100%.
Win this play.
You guys see this one up on a play.
Yep, it's on. Yep. So again, if you see the concept of the video, kind of answers your question, which I already had made of, we're the kick returner, and these are all the people that are trying to prevent you from scoring your touchdown or closing on your property, right? And it shows how much skill and luck and positioning it takes to actually take it to the house, And again, like once you get into that clear, there's no one stopping you, right? It's not like you're getting all the way with the path clear other than a turf monster taking you out, but it shows all of the components of actually successfully completing a goal, completing a transaction. You know what I mean? But back to what you were saying, Fritz, 100%. And again, I think people, hey, I want to make $1 million a year. Okay, well, great. I'm with you on that. But you don't go from making $100,000 a year to $1 million a year without setting a routine, setting a game plan. And you don't do that by understanding what you have to accomplish each day in order to compound that momentum to get you to that $1 million a year. I think there's a lot of misleading content out there from people and influencers that unfortunately promote how easy it is. I can tell you that not many people have worked harder than me. Not many people have, again, respectfully, humbly accomplished what I've accomplished with proven numbers and statistics. And I tell you, easy is the exact opposite of what it is.
Oh yeah, no, you're never, look, it's never easy, and it's not supposed to be easy. If it was easy, everybody would do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what separates. And I think, it's the best point, and really, a huge important takeaway for anyone, for any industry, anything, any goal that you want to set. Again, the first thing is you just have to establish the process. You've got to establish the right process, and then you have to be consistent with completing the tasks as part of the process. And if you do that, that's where you hit success, obviously, like you have. And it's a great lesson for people to learn. But that's, I think, where a lot of people fall short is either they don't establish the right process, or they don't follow it consistently, right? Or they do it for a little while, and then they allow something to take their focus and get them off track, whatever it is. And, Brian and I have talked about this before. Failure is easy, right? Success is hard. And people are not afraid of failure. People fail all the time, every day. Most people spend their whole day, their whole life failing in one way or another. Sure. It's very familiar. It's very comfortable. People get used to that idea. So it's not that they're afraid of failure. They're afraid of success.
100%.
And the difference is the people who make it and are successful have it the opposite way. They're so afraid of failure that they can't accept it as a result. And because of that, they establish their process. They follow it consistently. They change it if they need to. They don't stick with something that doesn't work. They recognize when it doesn't work, and they stay on track. And again, it's just the consistency that leads to the success. But I think that's a big thing. Is most people are more afraid of success than they are of failure, because success for most people is not familiar.
It's interesting.
Back on that, what you guys said, right? So, the Navy SEAL mentality, David Goggins getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning and doing all those things, going to the gym and pushing yourself to the max and stuff. I think it's somewhat overrated. And the reason that, like, when you look at MMA or you look at like a lot of the high level training, there's a philosophy about going at like 60, 70%, right? And the philosophy of that 60, 70% is, my workouts, my training, my work days, I can't make those all consistently great. Like, you're not going to smash every workout out of the park. Every work day is not going to be great.
Yeah, it's impossible. Not sustainable.
But what I can do is I can be great about being consistent, right? So, like, in the most, literal sense of just like, in that kind of carpenter mindset, right? Of, George St. Pierre, the MMA fighter, talks about this, where he's like, most guys in MMA will go and they'll train 100%, balls to the wall. They end up getting hurt, like football practice. I only got one speed, and then they get hurt, right? They burn out, they kind of overdo it, and then they get hurt. And then it's like there's a level of consistency where you drop that energy down, to about 70% max, right? 65, 75% max, and you stay there, like almost like a carpenter. If you hired a carpenter to come and fix something at your house, or if you hired a painter to come paint a portrait of you, like, he's not going to get in there and be like, all right, let's get this shit done. He's just going to kind of do his thing and just get a little bit better every day and just kind of keep showing up. And I think that is significantly underrated, is sort of like that process of, I just got to show up every day. I got to do my routine. I got to make my calls. Not every day is going to be good. I got to get through. I got to be consistent. I got to show up for the workout. Maybe it's going to suck. Maybe it's going to be good. And then what ends up happening is, and you've seen this probably in your career, where, you take two guys, in high school, right? They start wrestling, and the ninth grader, and I start wrestling, and everyone calls me a fag because I'm wrestling and wearing these tight little shorts and all these things. And, I can still kick your ass anyway, and da-da-da-da-da. And, by the time I'm a senior and I've wrestled for 4 years, like, it's a completely different story, right? Where, everyone gets out of the way, kind of thing. Sure. Hallway. And I think that consistency, not making it some big event, not making it some grandiose experience, but just showing up with the right attitude makes all the difference long term. Because you're going to get tired, you're going to get burnt out, you're going to have days that suck. And it's just, you got to show up, right?
I'm not sure people are properly conditioned to win. And when I say to win, winning is obviously very subjective to the individual, right? Unless we set what the metrics is of what winning looks like, right? I find that even in a winning market, right, people always find the negative, like, oh, it's too competitive, prices are too high, for example, right? And then when interest rates go up and make the market less competitive, same people that were saying that, oh, interest rates are too high, yeah, but prices are down 5%, right? So like we could all pick and choose to look at what's not in our favor, right? Or we can accept what we can control and focus on that, right? And again, I never looked at it. It's funny, reflecting. I do a lot of self-reflection and meditation daily, multiple times a day, you name it. I go to a place called the Ohm Center on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, an hour from my house. And, I get spiritual work done, acupuncture, sound baths, like really, really cool stuff. I invite you guys, if you guys are ever up here in the New York City area, my treat. It's the best experience of your life.
I am in, my friend.
You let me know when you're taking that drive up 95. I'm here.
I am. You're talking my language, my friend.
But and here's the reason why I say that, right? College workouts, and it, like you're up 5 a.m. and up here it was cold, so you're getting up, it's 20 degrees out, it's 5 a.m. You got your girlfriend laying in bed, nice, warm and snuggly. You're getting up to get your ass kicked, putting weight on your back, pushing weight, throwing weight, getting run into the ground, throwing up, and then having class right after, right? The mortgage business in particular, and that's what I could speak on as you want to talk about 10,000 hours being an expert. I got a lot more than that in the mortgage business, right? I never considered the mortgage business physical work, right? I considered work like getting your ass kicked, like having to push hundreds of pounds and squat hundreds of pounds and so on and so forth and run into the ground. Work in the mortgage business is more like mental work, and it's more of like patience work, right? And it's also work to be consistent when the results aren't there, right? So it's like, okay, while I wasn't a sprinter, I would much rather run a 40 or 100 in a race than run a marathon. And when you realize training for a 40 or training for 100 or training for a marathon it's still running, right? You're still running fast, but the training for it changes. And the key is pacing yourself. And that's why so many people burn out, because they go all in or they spend all their money on one concept and it doesn't work. And then they just check out because they've burnt themselves out or exhausted all their resources. So, it's work, but the key is sustainability and not overexerting yourself, especially understanding that a lot of your success is directly correlated to the current market conditions and also what you've done in the past, So
let's talk about the mortgage market a little bit, right? So what is re-verify?
Real quick, Brian, real quick. I just want to throw something in because I think Jeff made some excellent points, really important and very valuable advice. I want to just follow up real quick. You said something I think is exceptionally important, which is you said, unless you've got to set the metric for what winning looks like. That is vital, right? Because, you have to know what that end goal is and you have to define for yourself what that success is. And I think a lot of cases people look at other folks and they try to base their own, what they decide what would be success for them off of what someone else is telling them would be success for them, rather than having the courage or taking the time to really dig in and figure out what that means for themselves. And I think that's a huge part of setting the plan and knowing what you're going to execute every day to get to that metric that you set for yourself for what winning is. And to kind of, just throw a little a saying in again to kind of real quick summarization, which is this: look, you cannot run 100 miles a day, but you can walk 1,000 miles a month.
Yep.
Right. Yep. And that's how you're going to get where you need to go.
Sure.
So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just thought that was
Fritz,
that is golden advice that you've just given.
Fritz, let me give you a real example. Brian, hold that thought. Write that thought down, man, so we don't lose that. But Fritz, I'll give you an example. I have a friend of mine who's a realtor. She's about 30 years old. And this is what I mean by the market having a direct impact on your success, right? And failure. Her goal was to hit $20 million in sales last year. And if she did that, her business would be up 15% from 2021, right? So when I was talking to her year end, I'm like, hey, what'd you wind up doing? Did you hit your numbers? She's like, I'm so pissed off. I'm so down right now. I'm a little bit frustrated. I closed 19.4 million. I go, listen, that's freaking great. I go, your business was still up 10%. She's like, yeah, but Jeff, she's like, I fell short of my goal of 20 million. I go, let me just put something into perspective for you. The rest of your industry as a real estate agent or broker nationally was off 40 to 60%, depending on your area, right? So if you closed 18 million, right, based on national numbers that I didn't make up, really, you should, if you close anything above 13 million, you're still ahead of your competition. You grew your business 10% in a market that was down 60%. Forget about the 20 million. You won. And she was like, I never thought of it that way. And that's what I kind of meant earlier about like myself being able to remove myself. And I get being competitive, and I know it hurts falling short. It's basically one deal, right? If you were to close one more deal or 1.5 more deals, you're hitting your goal of 20 million. But you have to look at the market and economic conditions of which you grew your business in a market that was off half, right? So people need to put success into perspective and also be realistic with what they're actually achieving and winning. Brian, you got the floor, man. Sorry about that.
So I was going to say, so you obviously have a lot of experience in the mortgage market and stuff. So tell us a little bit about Re-Verify and, what's going on with the mortgage market. What do you think is going to happen? If you had a crystal ball, for 2023, what's going to happen? Let's start with your company and that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you giving me the floor on that. And just so you know, and this is all done in real time. So I'm going to actually text you over another just headline that came from marketwatch.com. This is going to be real time, like as of today news. So first topic is the easy money making is over, right? What happened was because interest rates were so low and everyone and their mother qualified for a mortgage, rates were in the 2s, low 3s. The mortgage industry simply needed bodies on bodies, right? Hey, we have 10,000 people that need loans. Let's hire 4,000 people to handle these, 2.5 people per month, right? I'm giving overall numbers. And it was an order-taking business, right? Property values up, interest rates at all-time lows, incomes at all highs, government stimulus rocking and rolling. It was the biggest fake market I think the country has ever seen. Again, in the most rare of instances, everything goes in someone's favor, right? Very quickly, we saw last year how 2 months or 4 months or 6 months or 9 months of just moderate business can knock a company out. Companies were taking their eye off the ball and running before they caught the ball, right? There was so much money coming in that, they weren't seeing where they were losing money. They weren't seeing where they were overpaying people. They weren't really caring about even being profitable on the majority of deals, as long as the deals are getting closed to say, hey, we did $2 billion of business, but when you look at what you made, you broke even because you were giving loans away and everything else, right? So we've already seen the shift in that mindset. So again, getting super deep with everybody because I like being transparent. Like I said, I hope my story inspires a lot of people. So I removed myself from the residential mortgage originating business in May of 2017 because I wanted to become an expert and evolve my career into the hard money, private lending, private equity, commercial financing, bridge financing, non-QM space, because I knew at some point there would be turmoil and chaos in the residential mortgage market, having started in 2007 and 2008, right? With that came a massive steep learning curve. I had to form relationships with bankers. I had to almost rebrand myself. I had to brand the mortgage quarterback, which is my, kind of healthy hybrid of my sports world quarterback days and the mortgage world, right? I saw that no one needed to be a salesperson in America anymore for the mortgage business. We needed to be an educator and an advisor. So me being the mortgage quarterback, I'm going to quarterback you from where you are to your home purchase, or your home refinance, or your fifth property, your 12th property, wherever you want to be. I'm your quarterback. Put your faith in me, and I'm going to put all the key players in the positions to help you succeed. I founded my first technology company called Homebuyer Huddle, dumped about $100,000 into it with technology, marketing, parties, features. It was more of like a social community. I found out my girlfriend at the time was pregnant with my son. Obviously did that whole fear, anxiety. Am I going to be a good dad? Is this going to work? Whatever. And I walked away from $500,000 a year of income. 3 weeks before my son was born, I broke my ankle playing softball, had a lawsuit that I had to get on with the company, with a bank I was working for on Wall Street that contracted me at the time. So like, that was my like, okay, universe, I'm going to throw everything at you to see how tough you are to make it out of it, right?
Welcome to the jungle, baby.
Yeah, like, at some point I was like, all right, like, guys, you see I'm not giving up here. Can you stop just like taking shots at me?
Yeah.
But that really caused me to go internal and dig deep. And look, I know what I'm made of. I knew what I was made of, but now I'm proving it not on the field, but in the real world, right? So I spent all of 2019 kind of regrouping, trying to see what was next. Don't forget, 2019, again, we're similar in age. I was still only 31, 32 years old. So I'm still young, but I had just been through, a tough decade of going from being a kid to an adult to a professional and an expert. So I took 2019 to kind of regroup, and I was still doing consulting work, really growing in my other avenues of lending. So now early 2020 comes, everyone's like, 2020, new decade, let's crush it, this and that. So I decided to start Reverify, which is my real estate technology company. And what I wanted to do was bring all of my community together. I wanted to bring transparency to the real estate world. I wanted to create and I have created a social community. And we also decided to self-fund it. We launched Reverify. A week later, COVID shuts the world down, right? And one thing I always said was, I've watched friends raise money. I've watched people, come up with these great ideas. And what I saw specifically, and you'll probably have seen this or have been privy to this, I never had a lot of respect for people that thought another people's profession that they never did was easy, right? Hey, wow, yeah, look, this person just listed a property, made 30 grand. Well, you don't know how many people they went through to not sell the house. You don't know what it took. You don't know what they're going through, right? Like, you don't know what it is to be a realtor. You don't know how many times they showed buyers hundreds of homes that didn't buy it. And like, you don't know what goes on in the mortgage space, right? So what I saw was a big disconnect between the greedy capital VCs wanting to invest in these people that put good pitch decks together, but never had experience succeeding in the industry. Right? It was like, hey, I had a bad experience getting a mortgage. I want to perfect the mortgage business. Oh, like Tomo, T-O-M-O. Like, dude, they raised $40 million. And this one guy got a mortgage one time and thought he could, expedite the mortgage process and experience. Right? Yeah. So I'm like,
great. The guy, they sort of come in like, oh, this was a terrible process. Yeah.
I have people, and you probably know this, the majority of people become real estate agents because they buy their first property and the realtor they deal with is a knucklehead, or they think they know everything and say, this is the biggest clusterfuck in the world. I'm going to become a realtor because I could do it better, right? And that's not necessarily wrong. We know like the bar isn't that high in the mortgage or real estate space, right? But I know it can be better. But again, with market conditions, the market's constantly evolving, right? So we founded Reverify. So Reverify has taken a life of its own. I like to say it's the future of real estate for real professionals, right? It's also a social community that's safe. And I don't know if you want to pull up reverify.com, just so I can like briefly walk you through it.
Yeah, just what is it?
REVERIFI. And I gotta send you guys out shirts too. If you guys send me your address, I'll send you guys out shirts. But it's Reverify, REVERIFI.com.
Yep, I'm gonna pull it up right now.
And then what I'll do is, again, I'll just show you. So what I believe we've done is we've essentially solved the top what I consider to be 7 of the top problems in the real estate world, right? The first is communication. Second is accountability. And the third is transparency, right? So like those top 3 things, I believe we've helped provide solutions for. And again, like, so there's different functionalities of the platform. We believe that, people say, oh, if you solve one problem, you'll be a billionaire. Well, I think we solve more than that. So hopefully one day we'll be like a 7 billionaire, right?
Wow.
But
and then please buy the local football team here when that happens.
Fritz, you're gonna be on that group that gets paid out. Don't fool yourself, man. Don't fool yourself. So let me walk. I'm gonna walk you through briefly again, high level, what it is. So if you look at the top, member directory, find listing, knowledge center, events, and leaderboards. So now my belief is, from a competitive background, people need friendly competition. So if you click on leaderboard, for instance, right, we basically made Reverify a gaming platform where the more you use Reverify, you're rewarded with points. So you upload your profile picture, you add a listing, you manage your transaction, you invite other users, you claim properties and addresses you own. This is a free way to market people and a fun little game and competition, and you can filter it out by month, year, et cetera, and all time, right? So it gives professionals free visibility based on their performance. Hey, Fritz seems like a great guy. Fritz says he does a lot of deals. I went to Reverify. This is obviously in the future. How come Fritz doesn't have any points or listings? Is he really doing business? So this actually shows you who's doing business in real time on Reverify. Think of this as like a real-time scorecard for the marketplace, right? Now, we understand that the majority of people, specifically women, love to look at homes for sale. They love to dream. They love to look at properties. They've even coined the term like house porn, right? People have this addiction to looking at properties, which is how Zillow actually grew, right? Now, everything we've done on here has been done organically. I haven't spent a penny on actual direct marketing, none of that. This is all based off of my social media, my network, and obviously the octopus tentacles that go in different directions, right? So that's the leaderboard where people can have a friendly, fun competition, and they're rewarded for that. We run monthly competitions, annual competitions, you name it, right? Now, if you go to events, one thing that I found was people wanted to get exposure inside of other communities for real estate events, but there was a lot of noise in the marketplace. So every Reverify member is allowed to post either their webinar, their live seminar, or a hybrid of both on here, and even attach the Zoom links and the recordings of the same, right? So this shows people, hey, Brian Coester, great guy down in Maryland. Hey, I'm going to be in Maryland in June. I wonder if there's any real estate events in Maryland that I can attend. They go to Reverify, they see the events, they follow Brian, and they say that, you know what? I want to stop by and meet him at his happy hour. Okay, so it gives a way for people to expose themselves, market, and network. And you can also see who's attending that event. So if you're having an event, you post it, and you get people to sign up for Reverify to show they're attending. That way you can see who else like-minded is going to be there, with the hopes of saying, oh, Fritz is going to be there. I've been meaning to meet with him. Great, this is great. I can go to this event and meet him. The Knowledge Center is a way for showing people who's really an expert in the space. So every time you do a video on education or sales or market update, or just, hey, this is what title insurance is. You upload it here and people are able to go in and watch videos from other experts on Reverify, see the profile, and then take it from there, right? It basically shows who's active and who wants to educate the market, right? Now, the listings are really more just to help real estate agents. What I believe is the biggest problem with Zillow, or was the biggest problem with Zillow, as you know, if you get a listing, another real estate agent's able to buy the premium placement to make it look like it's their listing to generate that lead. That's fucked up, right? That's not transparent. That does the listing agent a disservice. That does the consumer, the buyer, a disservice. And usually that person that's buying that placement is buying that placement because they have no business of their own. And now they are not usually a professional locked in and aren't able to provide that same service that the buyer is expecting, right? Yeah. So if you go back to reverify.com, the main landing page, and again, for example, if you click on a listing, if you scroll down, you click on any listing, for example, every single buyer that comes in off of the listing agent exclusively goes to the listing agent. So when a real estate agent uploads their listing to Reverify, anybody that contacts them off of Reverify, that's their lead, their deal. No one can cut in the middle of it, right? And we don't provide APIs, so we don't want feeds from the MLS, and we don't give feeds out to any external sources. This is a way for a listing agent to hopefully also obtain the ability to have either the renter directly or the buyer directly to double up on their commission. Because as you know, listings control the market, especially with the scarcity of listings. Now, what I think is a good feature is when somebody uploads a listing, they're able to add their seller to re-verify, and the seller is actually alerted in real time every time someone makes an offer on the property. So let's say somebody wants to put a rental application in for $2,500, they can submit that offer digitally to ensure that the seller or landlord and the listing agent receive that offer via text and email in real time. That way, real estate agents can't backdoor or not present all offers that come to the table. Simultaneously, it gives the seller a portal to track all of their offers or applicants in one centralized location. That way, you don't have to worry about, you got a text, you got an email, you got a fax, you got a phone call. Brian Coester said that he was going to put an offer in. Did Brian never put the offer in? It's a way for content management to be done. So in that way, the realtor and the seller or landlord can sit down in one educated conversation, review all offers, and make the most educated decision. The member directory, again, think of that as like the LinkedIn or the Facebook. But really what I believe to be the biggest component is we have a transaction management platform that we built out, which allows you to add each kind of like a fantasy football roster. You add the attorneys, the listing agent, the buyer agent, the mortgage lender, the home inspector, the appraiser, title company, closing agent, all to one stream. And then once you go into what we call the transaction table, you're able to assign tasks and completed dates to the process. So it's like, all right, Jeff, the mortgage person, submitted the loan on January 19th, completed. When I hit completed, everyone gets a text and email that's part of the transaction confirming that task has been completed. If I assign Fritz, to tell me on January 23rd if title insurance has been received, everyone gets notified that you've been assigned that task. Now come January 23rd, Fritz, what's going on, man? You said this be done by January 23rd, so it provides an immediate source of accountability. We believe that that's what the industry needs. And we also believe that if you utilize the platform, it'll create a 60% more efficient transaction. That's based on the metrics and closings we've successfully completed. And then bringing it all together, we believe that real estate will be held one day, deeds on the blockchain. So there's a functionality for a user to go in and claim or add their real estate that they personally own to their profile, which then allows them to be part of additional communities, get access to exclusive financing offers based on their portfolio, and also show that they're actually like an elite member to the real estate community with the hopes of becoming a mentor or a leader inside of the space, right? Forward looking, the more properties you own, when properties do eventually evolve into the blockchain, we're going to have that as the capability to prevent property theft and equity theft, where hopefully every single time somebody acquires or sells a property, it's done on the blockchain. So we're front running the integration of real estate onto blockchain by having access to all that data. So when that happens, it's an easy migration. That way, nobody can ever sell or transfer a property without confirmation through reverify.com. So that's a long-winded, high-level overview.
Yeah, I mean, the gist of that I kind of got was this was like your brain in a company.
100%. That's exactly what it is.
You would want and how you would go about, and then just gathering that community, almost like the way you would want to do with commercial, your individual transactions. You've sort of put the technology behind it. So that's very interesting.
That's exactly what it is, right? And what we want to do is we're not looking to remove humans at all. We're looking to provide technology to allow humans to be more accountable and have more freedom. So rather than having to make 7 or 9 phone calls, text, emails for constant updates, people that do volume and do business will appreciate the heck out of this because you don't have to ask for updates. You're giving all updates in real time. So we want to eliminate the follow-up and automatically integrate the real-time live updates. And we think that's just an industry game changer.
Yeah, understood.
Ties in perfectly to what we're talking about in terms of the importance of establishing a plan. This is going to let you do that and help you keep track of it and manage that in a pretty effective way, it looks like.
And that's what it is. It's all about creating freedom. Like I know, like I said, like I'm a single dad. I've always been a single dad. You know, I have a 4-year-old son who's active and he's my pride and joy, right? And what I found myself doing was wasting time on stuff. So I created solutions for myself. Yeah, I've done this even before I was a dad, even early on in my career to implement more efficiency because we know that, you know, inside of a real estate transaction, everyone does things their own way because there's never been a leader to come out and be like, this is the way this has to be done. And that goes from listing a property to doing a mortgage to even, you know, transferring a deed from a personal name to an LLC, right? So what I really try and do is create a uniform national process to help people live a more free, enjoyable, stress-free life, if that's even possible in our world, you know?
Yeah. And let me ask you this, right? So this might, you know, when it comes to those ideas in your mind that need to be birthed, right? So sort of like you've talked about that a lot, where it's like, I have this idea about this and I have this idea about that. You know, where do you think that comes from, right? Because at the end of the day, like, you know, we have our own systems and things of that nature, and there's a point to where you're working on another person's CRM or you're working in another person's system, and you're like, well, this is terrible. Like, where the hell did this person come up with this? Like, I think this.
Yeah.
And it's almost like it has to come to reality, right? Like, it's almost like this inner drive, you know, almost like art, you know, like Fritz has in his background.
Sure.
What do you think that is?
Well, the first thing is I've always been, even in football, like I've always been a visionary. You know, I could tell you like when Oregon first came out with the spread offense, like and they were scoring touchdowns in like 50 seconds or less, if you remember, like way back in our college days. Remember Oregon? We were like, oh my God, you know, like wait, they're scoring in 50 seconds? Your average team doesn't even run 2 plays in a minute, you know, and they're running 7 plays in 50 seconds.
Yeah.
I've always been a visionary. I also, again, when I was 24 years old, I closed over 100 deals from 83 different referral sources. This is 2011 in like the shittiest of shit markets where, you know, banks were going out of business, warehouse lines were getting cut off. So I actually did like real volume, right, with real players by self-originating and processing all my loans myself, right? So I ran a high intensity volume mortgage operation for myself at 24, right? So I did all of it A to Z, and I was able to early spot on the inefficiencies. With that, I'm a believer, like I put my money where my mouth is, right? So people are like, oh, you make a ton of money. Yeah, but I also take shots on a lot of investments into my beliefs and my visions, right? And you only need to be right once in order to have you and the rest of your, you know, offspring and their offspring's offspring be set for eternity, right? Like look at the JP Morgan Chases of the world, and you know we all know, you know, how the Rockefellers, how that works. You have to be right once, right? With that also being said, I think it just takes like pure commitment to like the embetterment of what you believe in, right? Like if I said to you, Brian, do you have kids or no?
3 kids.
How old?
13, 10, and 2.
Whew. So, you know, God bless, right? So, okay, so you'll be 56 by the time your little one's out of the house, 54. So, you know, if I said to you again, like, and forget about like football player, man to man, I'm talking to you like dad to dad, like, Brian, listen here, you know, check out my platform because it's going to allow you to send 100 less follow-ups, you know, per month, and it's going to give you that much more time to be present for your kids. Can I get you for 5 minutes? Like, that's real. Like, that's heart to heart, you know? And if I also said to you, hey, I think I can streamline and make your business more efficient so you can reduce your payroll or overhead, or rather than paying your admin $55,000 a year, hire a transaction assistant for $50 a transaction, right? And this is going to save you $30,000 a year. And here's why I built this out. Let's do it, right? And I think part of the problem is in our world, like what I've been challenged with, in a gentleman's way of saying it, is a lot of people check in and check out of following what I do, right? And they don't understand, like, there is a method to my madness. The problem is a lot of people haven't done the volume that I've done or seen what I've seen or experienced what I've experienced. So they don't understand the true value because they're only doing 2 deals or 6 deals or 8 deals a year. And they're like, I don't need this, right? But meanwhile, they really do need it. They just have fear of change, or they've been lied to, or they've been sold a bag of shit before, where they're so closed-minded on giving something another opportunity. And as humans, I think we're all guilty of that. Once we get burnt enough times, we're like, I've heard this before. I don't want to hear anything new. I'm just going to put my head down and do it my way.
Yeah. Yeah. No, understood. No, understood. And I think everyone's, especially in today's society, right? Like you really do have to be an entrepreneur and have your own thing and bring value, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you can't sit on the sideline and watch everyone do it, right? I mean, and it's not hard either now with tech stacks or online or, creating your own brand, exactly, cell phones. I mean, you really do have to put yourself out there and kind of chart your own course and create your own kind of destiny, right? I mean, that is something I think in America has started to re-rise again, right? Like the corporate idea of like, go get a job, you're going to get benefits, all that hasn't worked, at least in the last 20 years, right? I mean, just sort of, you've seen all the bankruptcies and car companies going out of business, manufacturing being shipped overseas, all those things. It's like the only really stability you have for your family is to start your own business, is to get in business for yourself, is to, have some sort of enterprise that allows you to go beyond the, traditional route.
I think people also fail to realize like actually how hard it is, and Brian, whether it's, hey, how do I even open up my own LLC, right? Or how do I even come up with my company name? Or what do I even love or like to do? How do I even get an accountant, right? Like I think people don't talk enough about how hard it is, because look, when you run your own company, and I've always said this, like it's kind of when I was in the mortgage business, we got to wear a lot of hats, right? You have to be an originator, you got to be a marketing guy, you have to be an underwriter, you got to be a processor, you got to be a therapist, you have to be so many things. Whereas, again, and I've learned this, is I've never had a corporate job. I've never even applied for a job in my life, I don't think. I've just said, hey, I do commission, like stay out of my way and I'm going to make it rain, right? There's nothing wrong with taking a corporate job if that's like what your capacity or what your capability is or where you're at in life. Right.
I think there's an element of, so with me becoming an entrepreneur, there's a mental like neurological dexterity, right? So if you think about somebody, I'm not, it's not cut down against anybody who has a position, but like an underwriter, right? So it's like they show up every day, they have their files, they have their little routine, over a period of a couple years, they kind of establish their routine, they kind of go through the file, they take they do a good job, right? So hats off to them. Yep. And then you start saying, okay, well, I got to underwrite this file, and then I got to make different phone calls, and then I got to work with my tech team, and then I got to kind of, I'm going to go to the gym, and then I got to be a parent.
Yep.
And there's an element of like neurological dexterity and flexibility that I think is hard for people to learn, right? Where your brain likes routines. And as an entrepreneur, somebody who owns a business or somebody who is, kind of enterprising, you could be an entrepreneur working within a company. I mean, it doesn't really matter. You have to kind of start with this basic premise of like, I don't know what's going to happen. Like I have to have my eyes open, a clean slate, take what comes to me and make the best of it without adding a whole bunch of emotional context to it, right?
100%.
Like in the sense of saying, because my day is different, because I had to make phone calls today, because I'm on the road today, because I didn't, check my emails today, because there's something that threw a snafu in my schedule, that doesn't make any difference, right? And I think people have a real hard time dealing with those changes, but it's not like it's not something you can learn. I mean, it's a skill. Like I do think that is something that, if you start, the first couple of years of owning a business, you feel like you're just ready to jump off a bridge. I mean, you're just like, what?
Quicksand. It's quicksand.
Yeah. Like, what is this? Right.
Yep.
I got years all the time and comes up now. I mean, there's a certain point to where you realize it's not that the task is difficult. It's the emotional context that I'm assigning to the task. Like, I like my routine. I like to, mindlessly go through my day, and now I can't. I have to adapt to the situation. And then eventually your brain just sort of matures and says, okay, well, every day is going to be different. So we'll see.
So for like myself personally, I can tell you like there's no doubt in my mind, having played quarterback and then transitioned to wide receiver, it's like, okay, I'm playing quarterback. Here's a play. Oh crap, the defense lined up in a different zone than I expected. I gotta call the audible. I gotta forecast the blitz. I gotta get my hot route, right? And then for moving to receiver, it's like, okay, I know what route's called, right? He looks like he's playing cover two. Oh shit, he's in man. I gotta change my route. So like my sports background, there's no doubt about it. Again, playing quarterback, seeing the whole field, being the field general, and then moving to receiver allowed me to be prepared for where my career was and is, right? Of adapting, moving on the fly. And I always say, and anybody that I coached, I have a coaching low-key like coaching program of mortgage loan officers like nationally. And again, the right people is, look, every day I know what has to get accomplished. When I wake up, I don't know when those non-time sensitive tasks are going to be accomplished, right? And I think that's part of the fun of almost being pulled in the wind in that time frame from when you wake up to when you go to bed, but also the accountability that you have inside yourself, knowing that gets done. Like I'm looking at 267 emails from when we got on this earlier to now that have to be replied to, analyzed, read, reviewed, right? And again, like when I didn't plan on having those emails, but when I get off of our call on this podcast, right, I'm gonna see based on my own like intellect, what's the hottest loans that have to close by next week, right? And look for their names first, right? The names that I'm like, I wasn't expecting an email from this guy. He could wait. He's closer like towards the end of the list, right? And the person that emailed me that's asking me to do something for them as a favor, they're all the way probably towards the end of the list, right? But like me personally, I've set up what I believe to be my variable system, right? Myself, like if it's an emergency, please don't email me, text me, right? Because I can get back to you immediately. So again, that's even the matter of like juggling email versus text. Like I check my text in real time 24/7, right? Unless I'm fully engaged in something else. Email comes last. I look at it as if you're emailing me, the world is not burning, So I think everyone has to figure out that system for themselves and understand that if you're looking for a full set routine, I get to the office at 9, I have my lunch at 12, I'm here at 5, you're putting a ceiling on your earnings capability and your growth capability. If you go out there each day with the intentions of powering through and knowing by the end of the day, you've accomplished and succeeded in getting all the shit done that you had to get done, it doesn't matter if you got it done at 9 a.m. or 11 p.m. And I think people box themselves into that window and realize that their window isn't large enough, and that's where the overspill comes from, which is why they wake up the next day feeling like they're already buried because they're selfish and put themselves ahead of the tasks that need to be completed.
Yeah, that's how that's a great point, because that's how people burn themselves out. They develop the anxiety, self-inflicted wound, right? Over, I didn't, check this off or that off or whatever it is. Yep. And that anxiety builds up. And then once that hits, it becomes much more difficult to regain your focus and get back to that plan. Sure. So it goes back to, again, what we were talking about earlier with just establishing your process, knowing what your definition of success is, which when you say that, some people might think, most people are going to think in terms of a long-term goal, but that would still apply for just what you just said, your daily tasks, your daily goal, and how you prioritize those as well. So, man, Jeff, I'm really excited that and grateful that we've been able to have a conversation, because I've gotten a lot of good stuff out of this one, and I'll say thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Right? Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I think we got to kind of wrap up a little bit, but I think
do
this again.
But I want to say this. Yeah. I just want to say this as an endorsement. I went on while we were we were all kind of talking here. I went on to Re-Verify. I put my profile in. I uploaded my photo, and there is a huge amount of good information in the Knowledge Center there. I think a lot of people can learn a lot. And I would encourage anyone in the industry, man, to absolutely make sure they create a profile on here. There's a lot of good stuff, and I think this is beneficial. This will be very beneficial to a lot of folks who are legitimately interested in learning and improving. This is a great road. This is a great roadmap. This is a great roadmap.
I really appreciate that. What I really want to just close it up with is again, Reverify is free, and we've had low millions, high hundreds of thousands of dollars of potential capital opportunities coming in, and like everyone's looking to win the race today, right? What I've realized is, and back to Brian's original question, I've started calling 2023 the year of the pro, like the year of the professional, right? And people have to decide whether they're in it or they're into it, right? It's like, yeah, I'm kind of into having a diet, right? Yeah, whatever. No, I'm in it. I'm committed. I got my meal plans, right? And that's going to be the same thing in the real estate and related industries. We're already starting to see people fall off, and the lower interest rate environment that we've seen over the past week may give people some lifelines or life support, as I call them. I do see 2023, as I posted, I do see residential real estate rising somewhere around 20% nationally if rates stay at or under 5%, strictly due to the limited supply and pent up demand. All the buyers that were expecting 3 and 4% rates got clobbered and they got discouraged. Now they're given a mental reason to purchase. It's not a financial affordability reason. It's a mental reason. Oh, rates are now dropping. Okay, let's go buy, right? They could have bought. They just didn't want to because they were butthurt over where interest rates went. And I get it. But for myself personally with Reverify, as much as I want it to be $1 billion success overnight, and I know one day it will be, I'm really enjoying the organic growth and process and speaking with gentlemen and class acts like yourself to grow it organically, because I understand the value of having the appropriate foundation. And I believe that the more first-class human beings that are a part of the early stages, the stronger the vertical integration of user growth will be. So I'm in no rush to turn a profit from Reverify. It is a heart-based venture. I call it a double bottom line venture where I want to create social impact, create opportunity, give truth and transparency, make the industry better. And then when all that is proven, I know the money and the profitability will come. So, I really do appreciate you guys, getting me on here, allowing me to share my story, my experiences, my voice, my vision for what I see the future is. And I believe come January 2024, it's going to be a last man standing. We're going to see, what the industries are made of for the next 12 months.